My story is mixed with, hearing the voice of God, fearing my dad, fearing, failure, like everything together. Guys, and welcome. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. So this is Jocelyn. You can call me Kuwo, you can call me Pastor Jocelyn, you can call me Pastor Kuwo, you can call me whatever you want to call me, it's good. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how it was for me moving back to my home country after 13 years. Yeah, 13 long years. And I know there's a lot of you guys, you are living abroad. Some of you have never lived in your home country. And maybe you've been there once and you felt the vibe and you're like, should I go there? Should I, you want to. But then, so my story is mixed with, hearing the voice of God, fearing my dad, fearing, failure, like everything together. So I was born with mom and dad. Mom was 18, dad was 20. Obviously, they did not get married. And he moved and did something else with somebody else. So he got married 7 years after the split. So I was 6 when I had my younger brother from another woman. And then his wife had children when I was 9. So 9 and 11. I have 2 sisters. So I grew up with my grandmothers, my mom's side and then my dad's side and then my auntie. So when I got my, here in Cameroun, because I'm Cameroonian, so thumbs up if you're Cameroonian. If you're African, even if you're not African, just give me a thumbs up for the video. If you can support my channel, that would be great. So really, that's how at 16 I had my baccalaureate. We call it baccalaureate. So give me the possibility to go to the university. So this is me now, shifting and then going to uni, and then I meet my baby's father, and we are linked for 6 years. And the 6th year we have my daughter, and yeah, this is how I ended up at age 22 having my daughter. But at that time I was in England, so I went from Cameroun. My auntie, who was taking care of me at that moment, she was like, "You're not going abroad. You're staying here. You're going to become a doctor." And my father is like, "Our country is too unstable. You need to go. You need to go. You need to go." So guess who won? My father. So he did my papers. I spent 2 years in the university here in Gowaikele. That's how I ended up going abroad. I spent 2 years in Belgium, and my auntie I was living with. So it happened in this order. I land in Belgium, I am 19. 1 year later, my mother dies. So I'm 20, exactly 20. The following day of my birthday, she passes away. And the woman I'm living with, 6 months after my mom's death, she dies. And basically, that was for me the freedom to go and live with my baby's father, who just arrived in England. And after the funerals of my auntie, I did my papers. It took me 6 to 7 months that I got my visa, and I flew to live with my baby's father. At that time, it was my boyfriend. So I flew without without getting my dad's blessing. So that's how I left Belgium after 2 years in uni. Obviously, I didn't get my degree. Now I went to, and I was 21, and we had my daughter the next 12 months later. She was born, and we spent a year together after her birth, and that's how I ended up at 24 in England on my own, because she went back home with him. So at that time, when I was 24 and him 25, he says, "Okay, my papers are expired, I'm going back home." And I was like, no, my dad said I shouldn't come back home. So if at the moment I go, no, I'm dead. I had a baby without his consent. Right now, if I move back home, he's going to kill me. So that's how I stayed back in England, and I did not have papers, so it was quite difficult for me. After one year and 3 months, He sent me back my daughter. So I found myself age 26, a single mother in England without papers. So if you are in England, if you don't have papers, they don't give you child support. So I had to hustle. I was selling puff puff. I was, what did I do? Doing hair. I was doing a lot of few things. And I took a big house and turned it into a shared house. That's how I had an income to take care of my daughter. So relationships, I got saved. And that's very important. I got saved the following month after we broke up in 2011. And it was a journey because the gospel that I heard at that time led me to think, okay, I need to just drop everything, poor me, you know, I will make another video about that. That's a very important part of my life. So, yeah, so that's just how it happened. And I started growing in the Lord, started reading my Bible a lot. That's how I started getting knowledge. And what was preached and what I was seeing from what God was showing me, it started growing my faith. You know, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word. That's how my faith started growing. And I just gradually, when she was back, my daughter, she was back when I was 26. And I kept serving God the way I thought I was supposed to serve. And that's how, over the years, you know, dating Christian men was not really the thing for me, because I ended up always having, you know, disappointments after disappointment. You know, they will come and it's just crazy stories. But after dating 3 or 4 times, the last person, that was in 2016, you know, when he just dropped me, and we ended up not getting married. I felt ashamed. I left the church, and I threw away my Bible, got rid of everything that connected me to Jesus Christ. Like, yeah. And from 2016 to 2018, I was not really close to God. He was still there, because, trust me, he got me out of a lot of trouble. So that's how I ended up going away from the church. And that's the time I started discovering meditation, yoga, you know, occult, transcendence, you know, whatever, you know, the practices that other people do to call upon spirits. You know, I got involved into that, and that troubled my soul, my spirit. At the same time, I got married with my ex-husband. We just did a traditional wedding, so I think that counts. So from one day to another, he just left, and I think I might talk about that in a separate video. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, I'm very active on Facebook, so I shared, but it's in French, so I shared my story on Facebook. It's like 3 hours, and I did 3 videos, 3 hours video times 3 on my story. And so many people were touched and changed, and some came to the Lord because of that. So that's it really. But when we split, it hurt, and then I started my company in France, and I did it for a year. So that took me to end of 2018, and that's when gradually I started coming back to God, and I started reading my Bible more. I didn't even have a Bible, but I bought my first Bible again in 2018. I went on Amazon. It was $12.99. I bought it, and in the end of 2018, that I started feeling my heart coming back to God. So beginning of 2019, it was really intense for me, because I connected back with an ex that I had in England, and you know, coming back to God, I was like, I'm serving you, I'm keeping myself pure. And the guy was like, no, yeah, we're keeping ourselves pure. He was a Christian as well, and it was really not it. So he insisted, came over, and after the second trip, it happened twice. And I was like, the second time it happened, I was so grieved because I was like, I'm making my way up to go back to God, and there's no such thing as fornication, to get away from God as quickly as this. So yeah, that's it. I remember this night we were together, and he came for a weekend. And yeah, I said to him, I just felt the Spirit of God telling me, listen, if you don't get rid of this guy, like get rid of him, he has to go. And I told him, listen, when we started this relationship 2 months ago, I told you, I want to honor God with my body and with my mind, with my spirit, you know, even in my relationships. And he was very angry about it. Took his stuff in the middle of the night. It was 10:30, and just packed his stuff and started driving to Paris, from Paris to London. And I was like, okay. But something happened when he left. The moment he left, I felt the Spirit of God just filling me up. And I was like, God, I'm not worthy. Like, yesterday I just did this. Like, I just fornicated yesterday and 2 days ago. How can you feel me this much? And yeah. In the morning, I have a friend who is a prophet. He lives in my country. He contacted me, and it was maybe 3 months that we have not spoken. And then he contacted me and said, he started prophesying over me. And that's how I received my call. And I answered the call, and I started the church. So back then, God told me, start the church online. I was like, God, I've never heard of a pastor online. This was March 2019. So by faith, I opened a church online. As crazy as it is, I was the only online pastor that I knew. And after preaching for a month in France, one morning I was supposed to have a coaching session with the person that was coaching me back then. And at 7, I'm praying, and I hear the Spirit of God, you know, the loud voice. I want you to move back to Cameroun. So this is me. No, God. This is like 2 times a man asked me, because the year before, my ex-husband asked me to go to Cameroun with him. I said no. And 8 years before, my baby's father asked me to go to Cameroun, and I said no. And I was like, God, no. I can't survive in Cameroun without anybody's support. And you know, I'm not dating a man right now. Like, and God said to me, if you can follow a man blindly, you leave England, you come and live in France, why wouldn't you follow what I want you to do? You know, when God speaks, what do? I apologized, and I was like, I'm doing it. So in a matter of 3 weeks, trust me, 3 weeks, I moved out of 2 apartments, because I had 2 apartments. I just packed everything. I was doing Airbnb with one and living in one. And I packed, moved my stuff, put in the basement of the second one, threw away like almost everything. And yeah, bought my ticket. I tried to sell the stuff, but the notice was too short. Bought my ticket, and I flew to my country. So when I flew to my country, I had literally 0 CFA on me. I had euros on my bank account, and I thought, okay, when I arrived here in Cameroon, I will withdraw the money, And my card, the card that I had, I did not activate it in France before coming. So that's how I arrived here, and I basically had to arrive here and start living on what I created from here. So it's now, I arrived in June, the 21st of June 2019. Now this is the 18th of April 2020. So in a few months, it's going to be 1 year that I'm here back home. And I will tell you, God has been so faithful. You know, I could never have imagined, because back home, you know, here, life is expensive in a way that, you know, as an expat, when you arrive, they put high expectations on you. you're supposed to spend this kind of money, you're supposed to have this, you're not supposed to come and live here. You know, if I visit you, you're supposed to give me money, you know. And I was like, no. And I tried to live that lifestyle for a while, for a few months, let's say 6 months. And I just noticed that that was not for me. So that's how I moved. And I will share, with time, I will share my story, how God has changed me and how my mindset has changed as a Cameroonian woman. Because Cameroonian women, they have a way of thinking. I think that's like embedded in us. And if we're not careful, we end up spending a lot on hair, nails, cars, apartments, you know, going out, dresses, just crazy stuff. I did that for years, but then God has changed me. And when I give you this testimony, the day I was on my way to the airport, I asked one of my spiritual daughters in Cameroon, like, okay, find me a place. And she kept looking, but she couldn't find a place. So this is me, I'm on my way to the airport in a car, and I have an idea. Let me go online, I go on Facebook, and I see a man who just posted a picture of it's like an Airbnb, and it's my friend on Facebook. So I take the number, I give to the girl. She calls him, she goes there, new apartment, new build, everything new in there. And that's how I landed the next day. I went straight in the apartment, and that's how God gave me a place to live. The good thing with that landlord is that he was not taking the money in full the first day. So he allowed me, because when I was abroad, I sent her some money. So I had like 200 euros with her. So when I discovered that my card was not working and all my other accounts were blocked, I used that money, paid. And what I did the first few months, I fired up on programs, did a lot of programs, workshops, and people just came. And that's what gave me the opportunity to pay for my, here in Cameroon, when you take an apartment, you have to pay 12 months. Yeah, so if monthly you have to pay $500, yeah, you have to pay the, what, 500, that's 5,000, that's 6,000, so you have to pay 6,000. Yeah, that's the rule here. And I didn't even know this when I came. I arrived and I was like, I'll pay you 2 months, and he's like, he laughed at me. He laughed at me. He said, girl, it's 12 months, so, and okay, I will do you a favor, pay me 10 months. So that's how I had to gather 1,800 euros. So that was 2,137 euros in a matter of 2 months. So I fired programs, and that's how I gathered the money, paid for it. And don't forget that I had to furnish the place because the place was unfurnished. I just don't know how I did it. I think I gathered maybe 4,000 euros in 2 months. I think so. And the thing is that I want you to see that that's God has, you know, the hand of God was just there and there and there. So that's how God provided for my place to live. And yeah, he started connecting me to people, because when I arrived here, I never knew I could have my daughter with me again. And in a matter of 5 months, she came back and lived with me. So that was another thing God did for me. So coming back here, you know, the mentality that I had when I arrived, it was like, I thought it was going to be difficult for me to survive, because I don't know somebody. Like when I came, I was totally trusting God. Like, I know God sent me to Cameroon. I'm going to Cameroon by faith. And you know, when you tell that to people, they're like, but really, how do you do to survive? They're like, God is feeding me. How do you do to survive? So that's why I kept getting from people, really a lot. And the good thing is that God took me through stages. Like spiritually, I have grown. I had to face and do deliverances. I had to learn the spiritual realm, like to get deeper into it. I had to, you know, curses, breaking curses, generational curses, and even understanding as well what makes African the way we are, because we don't want to work. We just want to trust God and know that everything will happen it's just going to fall on us. So the best thing I did in my life was to move back to Cameroon. Yeah, and I know for some people, like, don't try this if you don't have it. Like, if you don't have something or somebody you trust in. I trusted in God. That's how I moved by faith, and every day I have to rely on Him. And every time that I started trusting somebody else, a man or a woman, I could see my finances drop. I could see my life just falling apart, until God calls me, and until I feel like I hear the voice of God, and He's calling me back to what He asked me to do. So that's really my journey, me coming back. So I reunited with my father 3 months after I arrived, because when I was coming back home, God gave me 2 instructions. The first one was to avoid my dad for a while when I settled. And it's when I saw my dad that I understood why God told me that. Because if I met my father the first week I arrived in Cameroon, I don't think I would have made it. Because I would have been discouraged. Because my father is well settled here. He's got a house, he's got cars, he's got a transport company. He's doing well, and he's the type of person that will tell you, "Oh, Cameroon is so difficult. I don't even know how to survive in this country. Oh, I'm dying." Like, that's him. And the first time I met him, it was in September, I think, and I arrived here in June. So that was like 3 months after I arrived. And after our first appointment, I was so confused because I felt like a failure. I felt like, okay, I got married 2 years ago. I dropped my marriage. You sent me to Europe. Now I'm back here, and I just have my child and nothing else to show you. That's how I felt, because my father is not a Christian. So when you talk about Jesus, he's like, you know Jesus more than who? Who do? So he's just gonna smash the Jesus thing. And it really took courage from my side to stay here, to trust God that He has a plan for me here, and to stay on track. And I know this is the fight of my life, because we all have something that we know we're called to do, but then sometimes we're too scared to jump into it. Yeah, to just take the step. I only cut my hair like 4 days ago or 5 days ago. That was another step for me. And that was just to get rid of the beauty side of things. Like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, And just for me to be free of opinions, to be free of expectations. And yeah, that's it really.